What about Indonesia? How multilingual is Indonesia? You're probably familiar with the name Thomas Stamford Raffles, who was the governor of Java at the beginning of the 19th century, and he later went on to found Singapore. He wrote a very well-known book, The History of Java. And in that book, he talks about Batavia, which at that time had a population of just 33,000 people. But among those 33,000 people, there were 21 different languages. So that means the average number of speakers per language was 1,570. The average number of languages per 10,000 population was 6.36. Already we can see a big difference between London now and Jakarta 200 years ago. The average number of languages per 10,000 population was 0.36. London, the average number of languages per 10,000 population is only 0.37. So people in the West think that they have a super diversity of languages. In fact, in Jakarta and many other cities in Asia, we've always had a super diversity of language, and even more super diverse than they have in Europe. These are the languages that Raffles identified. And a more recent study by Grass in 1983, nearly 40 years ago, in one neighborhood in Tanah Abang, Jakarta. And he looked at one community which had 100 families, 575 people, and found that that group of people had 8 different languages, Jawa, Sunda, Minang, and so on and so on. And that means the average number of speakers per language in that kampung in 1983 was 72 per language. The average number of languages per 10,000 population, if you extrapolate from that, is 160. Again, if you compare that, 160 per 10,000 with London, 0.37. So diversity of languages in London is nothing compared to what we have in Jakarta and other parts of Indonesia. So what that's a map of the kampung where he did his research. The point that I'm making here is that the term linguistic superdiversity is a very popular term among researchers, sociolinguistic researchers in the West. It doesn't mean anything other than multilingualism. It's the same as multilingualism. And it's misleading because it gives the idea that the number of languages involved is huge, but in fact, it's not really. So in my opinion, multilingualism is sufficient. We don't need this new term, linguistic superdiversity. So what about how multilingual is Indonesia? According to Ethnologue, there were 710 living languages. There are 710 living languages. According to Pusat Pengembangan dan Pembinaan Bahasa, there are 718 languages, not including dialects and subdialects. According to Census Penduduk, Republik Indonesia, tahun 2010, analyzed by Ananta et al., there are 1,400 languages spoken at home in Indonesia. This number is not widely known. Usually people talk about 700. In the census, there was one open-ended question which asked, what language do you speak at home? People could choose how to answer this question. And when the analysis was carried out by Ananta et al., they found that 1,400 languages were mentioned by the respondents. This is a huge, huge number. Some people will say, well, this includes dialects, or there are different names for the same language. But even so, I think it makes us realize that just how multilingual Indonesia is. Usually it's said that Indonesia is the second most multilingual country in the world compared to, and the first is Papua New Guinea. But if we compare the results, from Papua New Guinea, according to log, it has 840 living languages. So if we use ethnologue figures for Indonesia, Indonesia is the second, 710 compared to 840. But if we use census penduduk figures, Indonesia has the largest number of languages in the world, 1,400. I think this is interesting, and it's something that maybe we're not always aware of, just how rich the number of languages is in Indonesia.